at Le Chateau, my aunt's favorite five-star French restaurant. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the private dining room's mahogany table, where 12 family members sat surrounded by gilt-framed mirrors and hand-painted silk wallpaper. The waiters moved silently, pouring $100 bottles of wine into delicate glasses. I adjusted my simple black dress, purchased from a department store as my family would surely notice, and tried to ignore the way my cousin Isabella's Gucci dress caught the light. Mother had already commented twice on how, some of us, made an effort to maintain appearances. So Sophia, Aunt Margaret's voice carried across the table, dripping with false concern. Still working at that little, what was it, jewelry appraisal shop? She adjusted her own massive diamond necklace, making sure everyone noticed the movement. Actually, I've moved into consulting, I replied, taking a small sip of water. My phone buzzed quietly in my clutch. Another update from my executive team about the acquisition. Consulting. Uncle Robert chuckled, cutting into his Wagyu beef. That's what people say when they're between real jobs. He shared a knowing look with my father, who nodded in agreement. Speaking of jobs, my mother interjected, Isabella just made junior partner at her law firm. Youngest in the company's history. She beamed at my cousin, who preened under the attention. I felt my phone vibrate again. The contracts were ready for final signature. Beneath the table, I touched the simple silver ring on my right hand, the one that had sparked so many condescending comments throughout the evening. Oh, darling, Aunt Margaret's voice drew everyone's attention back to me. She reached across the table, grabbing my hand without permission. Is this the same ring you were wearing last Christmas? You really should let Robert take you shopping at one of his stores. Even with your limited budget, I'm sure we could find something more suitable for family gatherings. The table went quiet, waiting for my response. Even the waiter seemed to pause. It has sentimental value, I said quietly, watching Aunt Margaret's expression shift from condescension to pity. Sentiment doesn't pay bills, Uncle Robert declared. Speaking of which, my newest jewelry store opens next week. Premium location, highest-end clientele. We're expanding faster than any other luxury chain in the country. He puffed up, accepting congratulations from around the table. My phone buzzed a third time. The message was simple. Acquisition complete. Announcement goes live in 30 seconds. Maybe Sophia could work at one of your stores, Robert, my mother suggested. Start at the counter, work her way up. Learn about real jewelry instead of just appraising tourist trinkets. I don't think that will be necessary, I said, checking my watch. A simple timepiece that hid its true value well. Don't be proud, dear. Aunt Margaret reached for my hand again. You really should. She stopped, staring at my ring. For the first time she looked closely at the stone's cut, its clarity. Her face went pale. Is something wrong? I asked innocently, just as my phone lit up with the announcement that would change everything. That's impossible, she whispered. That cut, that's a Barrett signature design. They only produce 50 stones a year and they're all. She looked up at me, realization beginning to dawn. I smiled, touching my cheap ring. Actually, the Barrett Diamond Mines just acquired your husband's jewelry chain. The color drained from her face as every phone at the table began to chime with the breaking news. The synchronized chiming of phones around the table created a surreal symphony. Uncle Robert fumbled with his device, nearly dropping it into his Wagyu beef. The news alert displayed prominently on everyone's screen. Barrett Diamond Mines acquires sterling luxury jewelry chain in $4.2 billion deal. This must be a mistake, Uncle Robert sputtered, his face turning an alarming shade of red. Barrett Mines is owned by. His voice trailed off as he scrolled through the article, eyes widening at my professional headshot under the headline, CO Sophia Barrett announces largest luxury acquisition of the year. Impossible, my mother whispered, gripping her wine glass so tightly her knuckles turned white. You work at an appraisal shop. Actually, I said, signaling to the maitre d', who approached with a leather portfolio. I own the appraisal shop. And 17 others across the country. They're quite useful for identifying premium acquisitions. I accepted the portfolio with a quiet thank you, and placed it on the table. Isabella leaned forward, her Gucci dress forgotten. But Barrett Mines. They control 60% of the world's premium diamond production. They're worth $13.8 billion as of this morning's market close, I finished for her, opening the portfolio. Would anyone like to see the acquisition papers? Uncle Robert, you might be particularly interested in Section 3. It outlines the new management structure. The waiters, sensing the tension, quietly began clearing plates. One of them discreetly adjusted the television in the corner, turning up the volume just as the business news anchor began speaking. Breaking news in the luxury sector. Barratt Diamond Mines, under the leadership of CEO Sophia Barratt, has acquired Sterling Luxury Jewelers in a surprise $4.2 billion deal. Barratt, known for her innovative approach to vertical integration, has been quietly building her empire since inheriting the mines from her mentor, the late Jonathan Barratt, 5 years ago. Uncle Robert's face went from red to purple. Jonathan Barratt, your old boss at the appraisal shop? My mentor, I corrected, removing a document from the portfolio. He taught me everything about the industry, adopted me as his heir, and left me controlling interest in the mines when he passed. I've spent the last 5 years expanding our holdings quietly. The appraisal shops were just the beginning. Aunt Margaret grabbed the document, her diamond necklace catching the light as her hands shook. This says all Sterling executives must be approved by you personally. Yes, I smiled, touching my ring again. This stone? It was the first one I ever graded under Jonathan's supervision. He had it set in this setting to remind me that true value isn't always obvious to everyone. My phone buzzed again. My assistant's message read, "Financial press waiting for your statement. Forbes interview in 20 minutes. Speaking of value," I continued, standing slowly, "Uncle Robert, you'll find your new employment contract in that portfolio. I'm keeping you on as a regional manager, provided you meet our new performance standards." The room fell silent except for the television, where pictures of my global operations flashed across the screen. Images of mines in Africa, cutting facilities in Amsterdam, and retail locations worldwide. But you take the bus," my mother finally managed to say. I laughed softly, gathering my clutch. "Actually, I have a car waiting outside. And a private jet at the airport for tonight's board meeting in Amsterdam." I turned to the maitre d'. "Please add the dinner to my personal account. I own the restaurant too. Bought it last month." The sound of Aunt Margaret's diamond necklace hitting her water glass echoed through the stunned silence. The next week's headlines painted a vivid picture. Diamond Dynasty's new queen, how Sophia Barratt revolutionized the industry. My face appeared on business magazines, financial networks, and social media feeds worldwide. But it was the smaller changes that truly marked the shift in power. Aunt Margaret's coveted Thursday lunch reservation at Le Chateau mysteriously disappeared. New ownership policy, the maitre d' explained with a knowing smile. Her attempts to book at other exclusive restaurants met similar results. Amazing how many establishments had quietly become part of Barratt Hospitality Group over the years. Uncle Robert's first day as regional manager started with a mandatory 7 a.m. meeting. I watched through the video conference as he fidgeted in his new, significantly smaller office. "The quarterly projections, Uncle Robert?" I asked, adjusting my custom-made suit. "No more department store clothes." I've been reviewing them," he stammered, nothing like the man who had dominated family dinners for decades. "But our traditional markup strategy no longer applies," I cut in smoothly. "Barratt Mines is implementing a new pricing model. We're making luxury accessible to those who truly appreciate it, not just those who inherited the means to buy it." The irony wasn't lost on him. My mother attempted damage control through a series of increasingly desperate texts. "Darling, we should discuss this as a family. Your father and I always believed in you." About those comments over the years, I responded to all of them with a single message. "I'm available for family dinner next month. My private chef will prepare it at my penthouse. Black tie required. Real jewelry optional." The evening of the dinner arrived with a spectacular sunset view from my 60th floor penthouse. Family members arrived one by one, properly chastened and impeccably dressed. Even Isabella had traded her Gucci for a more subtle designer. "Welcome to my home," I greeted them, wearing a simple black dress adorned with a single piece of jewelry, my signature ring. Aunt Margaret's eyes kept darting to the magnificent art collection, the rare antiquities, the subtle signs of wealth that made her own home look like a middle-class suburb. "Before we begin, I announced once everyone was seated at my hand-carved Italian dining table. "I'd like to share some news. Barrett Mines is launching a charitable foundation. We'll be providing educational scholarships and business mentoring to promising young individuals who, like me, might not have been born into privilege but have the drive to succeed." I met each family member's eyes. Jonathan Barrett taught me that true worth isn't in what you own but in what you build. He saw potential in a young woman everyone else dismissed. So now I'm extending that same opportunity to others. That's very admirable, my father managed to say. "Yes," I smiled, touching my ring. "Oh, and Aunt Margaret? That necklace you're wearing? The diamonds are from my Australian mine." I recognized the cut immediately. "Excellent choice." She touched the necklace reflexively, realizing that even her attempt to showcase her wealth now only demonstrated my own. "Now," I said, nodding to my chef as he appeared with the first course, "shall we enjoy dinner as a family? I believe we have quite a bit of catching up to do." The subtle power shift was complete. No more snide remarks about my career choices, no more condescending suggestions about my lifestyle. Instead, there was a new respect, perhaps tinged with fear, definitely mixed with regret. As I sat at the head of my table in my penthouse, watching my family adapt to the new reality, I smiled and touched my ring one last time. Jonathan had been right. Success was the best revenge, but true power lay in how you wielded it. "More wine, anyone?" I offered, knowing that every bottle they sipped, every morsel they ate, every chair they sat on was a reminder of how thoroughly they had underestimated me. The city lights twinkled beyond my floor-to-ceiling windows, and somewhere in the distance, my next acquisition target awaited. But for now,